Greetings and salutations, folks, and welcome once again, as always, to another helping of Mr H's Hot Pot. Today's adventure begins on a rain-battered car park in Darwen, known as Grainingswood Car Park. And in a moment, I'm going to exit the old jalopy and brave the pitter-patter of raindrops and make my way onto the moors of Darwen, where I'm going to try and locate a plane crash site that happened in 1945, where sadly, a Polish airman by the name of Herbert Noga lost his life. Now, I was wanting to do this video last week and I woke up to the pitter-patter of raindrops, and sure enough, this week, despite getting myself organised, getting my cameras charged and my mics charged and all that kind of good stuff, once again, it's raining. But I just thought, sod it, I really want to do this video, so here we are, basically. So hopefully, I'll be able to locate it despite the poor weather. Anyway, without further ado, I'm now going to go and get myself all wrapped up, nice and warm, and I'm going to make my way onto the moors of Darwen. So why not join me and we'll see if we can locate this plane crash site, shall we? Right, Top Potters, well, I've now left Grainingswood Car Park and I'm hoping to cross this busy main road, the A666, and make my way onto the public footpath, which will hopefully take me close to this plane crash site. Now, I've got everything logged into my mobile phone. I've been taking screenshots, so hopefully I know exactly where I'm going. But it'll be a bit of an hike, and I should imagine it's uphill. As such, Mick, if you're watching this, Mick Byrne, I brought myself along a nice stout walking stick, which makes me look like a wizard. But, as you say, it helps you to navigate and get up some steep hills. Now, I'm going to have to pass through a farm, which is Hall Moss Farm, and then we'll leave that behind and we'll be on the moorlands. Like I said, I've got it all logged in to my mobile phone, so I should be able to see where I'm going. And I brought along a couple of things that I would like to leave at the memorial site to Herbert Noga, who was a warrant officer by all accounts, so he was an experienced pilot. And when we get further on the moors, I'll tell you a little bit more about the story. Like I said, back at the car park, it is a bit of a tragic story, really, because it happened on the 29th of July, 1945, and the war in Europe had ended. So, although the war in the Pacific was still ongoing, you could more or less say that World War II was drawing to its bitter conclusion. So it's sad that someone should lose their life after the war had ended. Anyway, I'm now going to make my way up this bit of a steep route, which thankfully, because it leads to a farm, has been paved. And then I'm going to make my way onto the moors and we can talk a little bit more about this tragic event. So, Potters, I've just made my way past that farmhouse there, and I'm now making my way up onto the moors. And there's something here on this gate that always makes my blood boil when I see it. I'll whip the camera around now, and I'll show you. And this is what makes my blood boil. When you're making your way along a public footpath, and farmers put notices up that say, "Beware, bull and suckler cows with calves. Please avoid and keep dogs under control." And they put other little notices up that say, "Please use the style. This gate is now locked due to someone deliberately leaving it open on several occasions recently. Thank you." And then the style that they direct you to is pretty difficult to negotiate if you're a bigger fella like myself. But here goes. Let's go up these steps. And breathe in. Right, Hot Potters, onwards and upwards. Obviously that farmer doesn't like people coming through the yard, but as it's a public footpath, there's nothing they can do about it. Right, Hot Potters, we've safely left that farm behind. with its rather aggressive beware of the bull type sign, and I'm now on the open moorland. And the way we're going to be making is along that footpath there and over that ridge. And I should come to a little pond, and from there, once I make my way around that, we should be on all the small little footpaths will leave the main public footpath. Beyond here there be dragons. Now, one thing I have got with me, I've got my mobile phone and it has got some good signal. So I should be able to locate it on there, and if all else fails, I'll just follow that to where this crash site is, as it is off the beaten path a little bit. Now, there is a little bit of wreckage still left there. A couple of days after the crash, the RAF came and they took anything that was salvageable and they took that away, and then it was cleared up in the 1980s, but they did leave a little bit of token wreckage there. So we should be able to see that if all else fails. And as I say, it's a really sad story, as Warrant Officer Herbert Noga, he should have been on a bit of a jolly, really, because what he was doing, he was just taking his aircraft, which was a Mustang, from the Polish air base in the Norfolk Broads over to Blackpool. He was doing what was known as a ferrying job, which means there was no crew and no cargo. He was just moving the aircraft from one place to another, and it should have been a nice little flight, really. And on that day, it wasn't as misty as it is today. It was a clear skies. What happened, when he reached these moors, the clouds had come in and he basically misjudged his altitude. The only saving grace for him was he slammed into the moors at cruising speed, which meant he wouldn't have known anything about it. But it's still a tragic tale nonetheless. To have come through World War II, to have no doubt seen action and get killed like that, it's just so sad, really. It really is. Anyway, I'm now at a point where I'm going to have to get my bearings, so join me in a little while when hopefully I'm off the beaten path a bit and a little bit sheltered because the rain's coming in, and we'll see if we can find this memorial. So here we are at this little pond, and this is my last little landmark before leaving the main footpath, which, if you was to follow it, you go over that stile there. But I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be going off-road and following a little footpath that is non-official, so to speak, that leads to this crash site. Now, when we get level with this stile, I can see over in the distance the Polish flag, which I'm assuming marks the crash site. I didn't know that before coming on this bimble, so that's a bonus. I don't know if you can see it there in the centre of your screen, but it's flying away there. That is the main footpath, but we're going to make our way along this little unofficial one here. Now, it's supposedly pretty good underfoot, and it's not too bad if anybody wants to come up and pay their respects in person. It's a nice walk. Unfortunately today, the rain keeps rolling in, as it tends to do on the moors. And it did on that fateful day in July 1945. Yes, indeed, you can see the Polish flag there. Right, once again, I'm going to leave you and make my way over to somewhere where it's a little bit less inclement. So here we are at this plane crash site, and it's very easy to find thanks to someone attaching a large Polish flag to Herbert Noga's memorial. And you can see some of the original wreckage there from the aircraft. As I said earlier, the RAF collected the main parts in the subsequent days after the accident, and then in the 1980s the rest was removed on an archaeological dig, I believe. But these pieces, which come from the fuselage, have been left here as a token memorial and to mark the spot. And you can see the crater that Herbert Noga's plane that he was flying that day, a Mustang I believe, has left in the ground. Whether or not the reason this water's very black is because of aviation fuel or because it's peaty beneath my feet or not, I don't know. But there is his memorial, and people have left a number of trinkets and mementos at this spot. Now I'm going to do the same, Hot Potters, because in my bag I have a little medallion and one of those crosses with a poppy on it, which I'll also leave here in memory of this airman. Now, Herbert Noga was part of the Polish squadron of the RAF. And if you ever watched the Battle of Britain film, it mentions the Polish airmen there, and it shows you them flying predominantly Spitfires. But the Polish airman ended up flying an assortment of aircraft, which is why he was flying a Mustang that day. As I say, it was just a ferrying job taking it over to the Polish air base at Blackpool, which it was the Squires Gate Aerodrome. It's near Blackpool Airport. That's where it was based in the northwest, and he was flying it there to train pilots when, tragically, due to an error in judging his altitude, he flew into this area, and I'm guessing his aircraft slammed in at that point there. I'll now make my way down to the memorial and we'll read the inscription, as it is in both English and Polish. And it states, in memory of Herbert Noga, a Polish pilot who died in a Mustang plane crash on the 29th of the 7th, 1945. And then beneath that inscription, it's also in Polish. And someone has put like a little clock thing there, and I believe that this accident happened at 4 p.m. on that date, and whether or not they've stopped it at 4 p.m. or not, I don't know. No, looking at it, the battery simply ran out. It would have been rather eerie had it stopped at 4 o'clock. Right, I'll now whip the camera around and get these little things out of my bag and show them you, and then we'll place them on Herbert Noga's memorial. So I'm now going to place these mementos that I brought up onto these moors with me on this crash site and memorial to Warrant Officer Herbert Noga. Now, first of all, a big thank you to Sergeant Tyler Morgan of the 723 Wigan Squadron of the Royal Air Force Training Cadets for donating this medallion, which I'll place on the cross in a moment. There's the rear of it. And I've also brought with me, as we're very close to Remembrance Sunday, a wooden cross with a poppy on it, which is rather fitting. I have seen a number of them at the back of the main cross there, and I'll be adding mine in a moment. So, without further ado, as there's a bit of a lull in the rain and the wind, let's place those mementos here, and we'll have a minute's silence in memory of this brave airman who tragically lost his life on these bleak moors. So we'll now carefully make our way to the main memorial and leave our little mementos or tributes to this airman. I'll go around the back of the cross, I think, so as not to disturb any of that wreckage. There are the other wooden crosses that others have placed up here. And I think we'll place that medallion here, like so. And I'll now place this cross at the side of this here. What I may have to do is find something to tap that in with. There we go, just straighten that up. And job's a good one. Carefully make our way back out. And then I think we'll just have a minute's silence. Right, Hot Potters, I'm now going to whip the camera around and wrap this portion of the video up. And just look at that for a shot. A rainbow there in the background that seemingly is on the crash site of this airman. Now, although this crash site is quite substantial and lots of people make to it to leave little tributes and mementos such as I've done, he is actually laid to rest at Leighton Cemetery in Blackpool, and that's where we'll be going for part 2 of this video, and I'll tell you a little bit more of the story of Herbert Noga, where he came from and things like that. But this site was actually restored in 2020, as the original one was destroyed in 2019 with the wildfires of the moorlands, if you remember that. And the original inscription used to say, "We Polish airmen gave our souls to God, our bodies to the British soil, and our hearts to Poland." And that is a very eerie, if not chilling, epitaph when you come to think about it, as many of them didn't return home for one reason or another, which I'll explain in part 2 of this video. But for now, I'm going to make my way back whence I came, get back to the old jalopy and head off back to Wigan to edit up all this footage ready for your edification as always. So, until I see you on part 2 of this video, it is bye-bye for now.